Hey guys, what's up? Okay, so I was sitting in the park today, and over by a park bench next to me were these four guys. The first guy was a blind guy, the second guy was a mute guy, the third guy was deaf, and the fourth guy was a paraplegic. And they were all sitting on the bench, being pretty quiet and nice, and they were feeding some birds. And then all of a sudden, the blind guy turns to the mute guy and says, "Hey, that deaf guy is so ugly." And then the deaf guy stops, turns to the blind guy, and says, "Hey, I heard that." And the blind guy turns to the deaf guy and says, "Yeah, right, be quiet." And so then they started really getting into it, and they were fighting, and they were back and forth, bickering and arguing. And the mute guy, trying to be a peacekeeper, finally says, "You guys, stop it. You need to stop fighting." But they wouldn't stop. They just kept bickering over and over, back and forth, because the deaf guy just couldn't listen, and the blind guy just couldn't see the error in his ways. So they kept bickering and arguing, and they were fighting and fighting and fighting, until finally the paraplegic guy, who's getting sick of hearing this whole thing, finally just yells out, "Stop it! Both of you! Shut up!" And the blind guy turns to the paraplegic and says, "Why don't you make us?" And the paraplegic, getting sick of everything that's going on, turns to the blind guy and flips him off. And the blind guy was of course taken aback by such a gesture, and the mute guy was just at a loss for words. But then the paraplegic decided, before it could get any worse, because he never really could stand up for himself, he decided it was best if he just left. So he turned to all of them and said, "That's it, I'm leaving." And he got up and walked away. And then the blind guy turns to the deaf guy and says, "Whoa, did you see that?" And they all turned back and started feeding the birds again. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen.